Hey, folks, today is Tuesday, May 2nd, 2023. Coming up, Roland Martin Unfiltered, streaming live on the Black Star Network from Los Angeles. Yesterday, Black Republican was on with Robert Patillo yesterday. Let's just say it was a whole lot of lying going on. So I need to set the record straight as to some of the lies that were being told yesterday. Also, Florida Governor Ron DeSantis going after another black prosecutor in Florida. We'll tell you about that. Also, we'll be joined by Congresswoman Maxine today as she remembers her good friend, Harry Belafonte, folks. It's a lot we're going to be covering. And also, we'll talk about Senator Robert Menendez going to the floor of the Senate complaining about the lack of minority broadcasters in the United States. So we'll break it all down right here on Roland Martin Unfiltered on the Black Star Network. Let's go.
He's got it. Whatever the miss, he's on it. Whatever it is, he's got the scoop, the fact, the find. And when it breaks, he's right on time and it's rolling. Best believe he's knowing. Putting it down from sports to news to politics. With entertainment just for kicks, he's rolling. It's on go, roll, y'all. It's Roland Martin, yeah. Rolling with Roland now. He's funky, he's fresh, he's real, the best, you know he's Roland Martin now.
All right, folks, we have told you numerous times how Republicans in this country are using their power when they don't like local officials or local government. We're seeing this Florida, Texas, Georgia, you name it. We're seeing them abuse their power. Well, Florida Governor Ron DeSantis continues to do that, attacking duly elected state prosecutors in that particular state. He's now going after an African-American, Monique Worrell. She said it is indeed a witch hunt where they're trying to remove her from office. She joins us right now from Orlando, Florida. Monique, glad to have you here on Roland Martin Unfiltered.
Good evening, Roland. Thank you so much for having me.
All right, so what in the world is happening in the Sunshine State? Why is Florida Governor Ron DeSantis trying to strip you of power?
There's so much going on. So, he's on this whole anti-wokeness. He says that Florida is where woke comes to die. And the fact that I have recognized the wrongs of our criminal legal system, the fact that in this country we incarcerate more people than anywhere in the world, and here in the state of Florida we do it at a rate higher than the national average, and that we need to start utilizing some smart on crime instead of tough on crime policies. That has absolutely put me on his radar, and There was a mass shooting that took place here in February, and they rushed to judgment to blame that on me so that he could turn the court of public opinion against me. And it has been nonstop ever since.
All right. So how are they blaming you for a mass shooting?
Well, there was a young man who had a juvenile history. He was 19 years old, and he went on a shooting rampage. 5 people were shot, 3 people were killed. There was no relation to anything that he had done previously. He had a juvenile record for things like car burglary. There was 1 robbery in his juvenile record, but he was not the individual even in possession of the firearm at that time. However, none of those things happened while I was state attorney. Those all happened in prior administrations. The only thing that happened while I was state attorney was a possession of cannabis charge that could not be proven in the state of Florida because in 2019, our governor signed legislation that essentially made hemp legal, and that made it impossible to test the difference between legal hemp and illegal marijuana. So none of the state attorneys across the 20 judicial circuits in the state of Florida prosecute misdemeanor marijuana. But what happened is Senator Scott immediately began calling for my removal and for the removal of any prosecutor who had handled the case of this young man previously, as well as the governor coming out and sending a letter to my office requiring an extensive record production related not only to this individual, but to all of the cases in my office.
I'm confused. Didn't the voters didn't they decide they wanted you as their prosecutor?
They absolutely did. However, this governor has no respect for the electorate. He has no respect for voters, and he essentially does whatever he wants to, whenever he wants to. And unfortunately, it seems at this point, he does it with impunity.
And so you talked about the heat being turned up. And so are there folks standing with you? Do you have your supporters? What are other DAs saying, not just those who are Democrat? Are there Republican district attorneys or state's attorneys who don't like what they are seeing from this governor who, frankly, is abusing his power?
So I'll tell you that of the other 19 judicial circuits here in the state of Florida, only 2 circuits have come out publicly against his removal of Andrew Warren, another duly elected prosecutor who he accused of being a woke progressive prosecutor, a George Soros-funded prosecutor. Only 2 other circuits have come out saying that's wrong, that you are interfering with prosecutorial discretion, and it's wrong. I'll tell you that I wasn't sure about how much, if any, support I had. But on Friday, there was someone acting apparently on behalf of the governor who contacted my office asking for any examples of cases where I had failed to seek justice for victims of human trafficking. Not that they had any specific cases, but that they were searching for cases. This person who was acting on behalf of the governor called the wrong person. She meant to call someone else. She called someone who was closely related to my office, and they told my executive director, and we were able to get on it right away. And that information was not provided, at least not through the individual who were aware of her contacting. We were told that that information needed to be provided for an event that was happening on Monday. Monday would have been yesterday. After interviewing all of the individuals who we later found were involved in that request, we found that that information needed to be provided for a press conference that the governor was having on Monday. That press conference happened and my removal was not mentioned. However, that doesn't mean that it wasn't going to be. I think that by me putting it out there on Friday, it interfered with whatever his plan was. And over this past weekend, I have seen a tremendous outpouring of support locally and nationally from individuals who acknowledge that this is wrong. Democrat or Republican, it doesn't really matter. Our democracy in the state of Florida is being stripped away by a dictator, and something needs to happen to stop it.
But we're also seeing these type of dictatorial attitudes all around the country from Republicans. They attacked Marilyn Mosby in Baltimore. They've been attacking Kim Gardner. They are attacking Alvin Bragg. They keep calling all these Soros district attorneys. I mean, you've got, the legislature in Texas literally trying to allow the Secretary of State to overturn elections in only one county in the state, Harris County, which has gone blue. And so we literally are seeing this type of behavior across the country from Republicans, but you absolutely are seeing a dictator running around who desperately wants to be president in Ron DeSantis.
Yes, that's absolutely right. We're seeing this all over the country, and essentially it is an attack on democracy by moving illegally individuals who have been duly elected to their offices because they have politics that don't align with the Republican leaders. And this is very dangerous. Again, like I've said, our democracy is slipping away. And we have to stand against it. We have to do something against it. If Ron DeSantis were to become president, that would be a very sad day for democracy in this country.
And again, for the people who are watching, you are not appointed. You are elected. So what he is saying is, I don't give a damn about the voters who elected her. I want the person doing whatever I want them to do.
That's absolutely right, Roland. He has no concern for the electorate. As I mentioned earlier, he's removed Andrew Warren. He's removed a sheriff from South Florida. He's, I believe, removed several school board members. He is removing anyone who is not aligned with his politics. And for that reason, we have elections here. There are certain positions that are appointed. There are other positions that are elected. Mine is an elected position that should not be subject to the removal by the governor unless I am incompetent, drunken, unable to make decisions regarding my job. Those are reasons for removal. Disagreement with my politics is not, but he is utilizing this incompetence part of the statute to say, well, if you don't do things in alignment with the way I think you should do them, then that is grounds for incompetence or negligence of duty.
All right, Monique Worrell, look, we appreciate you joining us. Keep up the fight and certainly keep us abreast of what's happening there in your battle with Florida Governor Ron DeSantis.
Thank you so much for having me. We are going to continue to fight. Our ancestors fought and died so that we could have the right to fight. And I am well prepared for this fight, and I intend to do so.
All right. We appreciate it. Thanks a lot. All right, folks, got to go to a break. We come back. We'll have our panel. We'll talk about this here. We'll also talk about correcting Republican lies. You heard a lot of lies on this show yesterday. I, of course, was attending the George Lopez Celebrity Golf Classic, hosting several events there. And so I am going to show you how yesterday's black Republican guest straight lied, because we have the facts and the CVS long receipts. You're watching Roland Martin Unfiltered on the Black Star Network, live from Los Angeles. Black Star Network is here.
Oh, no punch!
I'm real revolutionary right now.
Thank you for being the voice of Black America.
All momentum we have now, we have to keep this going.
The video looks phenomenal.
See, there's a difference between Black Star Network and black-owned media and something like CNN.
You can't be black-owned media and be scared.
It's time to be smart.
Bring your eyeballs home.
You dig?
Hatred on the streets, a horrific scene, a white nationalist rally that descended into deadly violence.
White people are losing their damn minds.
As an angry pro-Trump mob storms the U.S. Capitol, we've seen shooting.
We're about to see the rise of what I call white minority resistance. We have seen white folks in this country who simply cannot tolerate black folks voting.
I think what we're seeing is the inevitable result of violent denial.
This is part of American history. Every time that people of color have made progress, whether real or symbolic, there has been what Carol Anderson at Emory University calls white rage. as a backlash.
This is the rise of the Proud Boys and the Boogaloo Boys. America, there's going to be more of this.
Here's all the Proud Boys, guys.
This country is getting increasingly racist in its behaviors and its attitudes because of the fear of white people.
The fear that they're taking our jobs, they're taking our resources, they're taking our women. This is white fear.
Hey, everybody, it's your girl, Lunel.
So what's up? This is your boy, Earthquake.
Hi, I'm Chaley Rose, and you're watching Roland Martin Unfiltered.
All right, folks, welcome back to Roland Martin Unfiltered here on the Black Star Network. If you're watching on YouTube, hit that like button, folks. You're commenting in the section. Be sure to hit the like button, and also be sure to download our app, the Black Star Network app, Apple phone, Android phone, Apple TV, Android TV, Roku, Amazon Fire TV, Xbox One, Samsung Smart TV, and don't forget you can always watch us on Amazon News. So pull up Amazon Fire, click Amazon News, and you can watch our 24-hour, 7 days a week streaming channel. All right, folks, let's bring in my panel here. Mustafa Santiago Ali, former senior advisor for environmental justice at the EPA, based out of Washington, D.C. Dr. Jason Nichols, senior lecturer, African American Studies Department, University of Maryland, College Park from Ellicott, Maryland, and Atima Omara, political strategist, joining us from Arlington, Virginia. Glad to have all three of you here. Jason, I'm going to start with you. This is very simple. And that is, I keep warning people in this show. They can play footsie if they want to. You can have some black men and some black women voting for Donald Trump. You had a number of African Americans who voted for Governor Ron DeSantis. These people do not care about democracy. They care about power. They will abuse their power. They despise people who are elected by the folks. They are attacking every single progressive district attorney. If you out there support criminal justice reform and you want to end mass incarceration, Republicans cannot stand you, and that's why they are attacking black state prosecutors or black district attorneys.
Well, one of the things, Roland, that we've seen is the fact that the Republicans are 100% willing to turn against democracy. They realize they haven't won the popular vote in, it's been 7 out of 8 elections where they've lost the popular vote. So, of course, when you can't win through democracy, of course you turn against it. And that's what we're seeing across the country. We're seeing them celebrate. They are saying directly to black people. So all of my friends there who flirt with the idea that Democrats are so bad, in some ways I agree. But what I will say is that the Republicans are celebrating fewer black people voting. They want to take away black people's votes. We saw what happened in Wisconsin, where that a Republican election official bragged about the fact that 37,000 fewer black people voted. In Florida, when they gave felons, many of whom were black, the opportunity to vote again, Ron DeSantis and his sycophants all came out and said, no, you have to pay all of your court fees. They created this election integrity unit in order to intimidate people who had just gotten their voting rights back. And they publicized these arrests, all of which got overturned. We see what they're trying to do. They're trying to take away these prosecutors, these black prosecutors, who are looking for other ways, and not just the black ones, but they're looking for other ways besides incarceration. Listen, they didn't want to put Donald Trump in cuffs. He didn't have to go. He can do whatever he wants. He can intimidate witnesses with his social media accounts. They won't send him to Rikers Island. But yet somebody shoplifting or somebody stealing a backpack can spend 2 years on Rikers Island awaiting a trial. Tell me how that's a fair system. And it only seems to happen to our people. It only seems to happen to black people. And the people who are trying to step in and say, hey, I want to change this system so that it's more fair and more equitable for all Americans, all of a sudden they're on the chopping block. Whether it's Fonnie Willis in Georgia saying that people should be held accountable no matter how powerful or wealthy they are, whether it's this person, whether it's the other person in Florida, and prosecutors across the country, they are trying to get them out. It seems like Republicans have a desire to let wealthy people commit crimes. They get upset about you having more IRS agents and all that. They want wealthy people to be able to commit crime, but they don't want the poor to have equal opportunity.
Well, look, I mean, here's the thing that I really need people to understand here, Omar, and I walk folks through this. Team, I keep walking people through this because I'm like, y'all, folk need to understand. If you sit your ass at home, somebody is going to win. Mm-hmm. I don't care how you feel. Somebody is going to win. We already know right here, Sherry Beasley lost the state Supreme Court justice position in 2018 in North Carolina by 400 votes out of 1.7 million cast. Democrats would have had a 6-1 majority on the state Supreme Court. They had a 4-3 majority. The last election, 2022, Republicans win. It's now Republican 5-2. They just overturned several decisions that disenfranchised 50,000 formerly incarcerated people, pushed forward voter ID, and they're going to allow political partisan gerrymandering. That's what happens when 401 people stay at home.
Yeah, 1,000%. And I think the thing that's so frustrating, and I actually, some of my work work in North Carolina. The thing that's so frustrating and heartbreaking is Sherry Beasley almost won that U.S. Senate race, but she lost by 3.6%, right? And it's a lot of, I definitely want to encourage people to come out, but I also want to call out the fact that we also need to make sure that we're getting the investments that some of our candidates need to win these races. There is no reason that Cal Cunningham in North Carolina in 2020 got as much money as he did. There is a reason. He was a white man, he was a Democrat, and people felt like they could invest in him. And then we lose that race. That was the same year that Sherry Beasley was up for state Supreme Court, and she lost by 400 votes. She lost by less than he did. And that goes to the quality of the candidate, goes to the quality of the race. And we need to be having conversations not only about, making sure that we have the resources to turn out our people, but then when we are talking about the zero-sum democracy, a zero-sum game that we're playing when it comes to democracy. I think a lot of people have an understanding of it, but they got to go about their lives. I think after 2020, we got rid of the threat. But the threat is coming back. That's very, very clear. We almost made it. We almost got it in Wisconsin with Mandela Barnes. And we can't lose again, because the thing that happened in North Carolina was, you mentioned the Supreme, the Supreme Court race in 2020. We lost 2 critical seats for the state Supreme Court in North Carolina that were Democratic nominated justices, one of them who'd already been serving for years on the bench, and they reversed a lot of the progress that North Carolina has made. So we're going to keep seeing this happen if we don't actually really believe that this is an existential threat to democracy. This isn't just this is the most important election of our lifetime sort of general speech that I feel like gets given and sort of undermines almost the actual threat that we're in right now. But we very much are in that threat. They aren't going to stop. They're going to keep doing this. You look at what DeSantis is doing in Florida with Monique Morell. You look at what he's doing trying to fight Disney, removing school board members in districts where he's disagreeing with how they're trying to run school board districts, literally removing duly elected individuals who are running school boards and replacing them with his cronies. It's absolute the Martha. We don't talk about it, but the Martha Vineyard flights of migrants, like literally paying people to literally human traffic people across state lines, not caring about their life, not caring about them or why they're there, as political stunts. And to the election integrity unit that the previous guest mentioned, the thing that's horrifying even about that, these people were returning citizens who'd done their time, and then the state board of election said, "You're good to go. Go ahead and vote." And then
And in fact, all those cases have even been thrown out. And that's the thing, right, Mustafa. And look, they're executing the strategy, Mustafa. That's what they're doing. They are actually doing it. And so what people need to understand is 2020 was a dry run. They absolutely are trying to steal elections in 2024, Mustafa.
Yeah, we all know Ron DeSantis is the drum major for injustice and the steps that they continually do. And it is a part of a strategic plan that he is following and other Republicans across the country. And, you know, it's interesting. The Republican Party for years said that we needed to make sure there was less regulation, that we needed to stay out of people's lives. And now we see him continue to overstep, overregulate, overreach. And folks have already shared, you know, whether it's on voting or abortion or the trans community or a number of other things. We see that their words do not match up with what they say their ideologue sort of things have been. So we just have to check them, and we got to make sure that people are voting, but we also got to make sure that we're taking folks to court when they continue to violate basic human rights for many people.
Well, look, that absolutely has to happen, and I just need people to understand. And again, what our job is, it's connecting the dots. It's trying to get you to see that this is simply not isolated, okay? And so when you see what is happening in Iowa, then Georgia, and then North Carolina, and then South Carolina, and then Tennessee, and then Alabama, Mississippi, Florida, Texas, Arkansas, and we go on and on and on, it's happening. I mean, when you have Republicans in Montana literally censoring and shutting a member from speaking because she's transgender and disagrees with one of their bills, they literally say, oh, no, you can't talk. You can't even speak. When they are in Tennessee, what they're doing, where they get to shut down Representative Justin Jones or Justin Pearson or Gloria Johnson because they don't like what they're saying. That's what they are doing. They have done the exact same thing to a sister in Oklahoma. Same thing. So they are literally shutting down dissent. And so the actions that they are taking, and again, right now, I got an email a few moments ago what's happening in Harris County, where Governor Greg Abbott, the Republicans are so pissed off because Democrats have been winning in Harris County, which is Houston, that they are trying to pass a bill to allow the Secretary of State of Texas to overturn decisions in Harris County alone, the only county in the entire state, if they say, oh, there are issues when it comes to voting. And so for everybody who's watching and listening, I need you to understand, they want the action in North Carolina, disenfranchising 50,000 formerly incarcerated, because they know the election is going to be close next year. And so if they can knock off 50,000 formerly incarcerated, mostly African-American, they're saying, we know we can guarantee a victory. They are trying to guarantee victories because they're pissed off that President Joe Biden and Vice President Kamala Harris won in Georgia. They're pissed off that they won in Arizona. They're angry that they won in Michigan and Pennsylvania and Wisconsin. And this is what their strategy is. I need y'all to understand, evil is at play. So even when we elect black prosecutors, when we elect black school board members, when we elect progressive county judges, they still want to say the hell with the will of the voters. And so the only way to shut down these fascists is to ensure that they never, ever, ever get elected. That is exactly what we have to do, folks. And so we're going to keep pushing this, and y'all can sit here and y'all can listen to these other fools out here who run their mouths, who talk all this stuff, who say, oh, who's a shield? You trying to get us to vote Democrat? No, I'm trying to make sure that your silly ass doesn't sit at home and you are affecting the lives of your brothers and sisters, your nieces and your nephews, and your mothers and fathers, because you choose to be obstinate, silly, as well as obtuse. Oh, I'm sorry, maybe some of y'all should go look up the word obtuse if you don't know what the hell it means. Yeah, I said it. Gotta go to a break. We come back. I gotta correct some lies that were told on this show yesterday. Y'all know I don't let nobody lie on my show, Democrat or Republican. But yesterday, it was some serious lies that were stated on this show. I got a couple of things to say. You're watching Roland Martin Unfiltered on the Black Star Network.
I lost my daughter. I didn't know where she was. So I had to figure out how to survive, how to eat, how to live. I don't want to go into the details because she's here, first of all. She may not want me telling that story. But possession of her, the family broke down, fell apart. I was homeless. I had to figure out, I didn't have a manager or an agent or anybody anymore, and I'm the talent. So I got to figure out how to be the agent. I had to figure out, how does business work?
We're all impacted by the culture, whether we know it or not. From politics to music and entertainment, it's a huge part of our lives, and we're going to talk about it every day right here on The Culture with me, Faraji Muhammad, only on the Black Star Network.
Black TV does matter, dang it.
Hey, what's up, y'all? It's your boy Jacob Lattimore, and you're now watching Roland Martin right now. Yee.
All right, y'all. Last night, Robert Patillo was filling in for me, and he had a guest, Stacey Washington, who goes by Stacey on the right on Twitter. And man, all you heard were a whole bunch of BS talking points. And you heard a whole bunch of lies. And y'all know, I simply cannot allow lies to stand on my show. So press play with some of these lies.
Every single thing that we saw during the Trump years isn't something that we would agree with, but it was still better, even including the pandemic years, than what we're going through under the Biden administration. So you named off a number of different things there that you were kind of ping-ponging around. The net effects, if you compare first year to first year of President Biden's administration and Trump's administration, the economies are like two different universes. President Trump oversaw a robust economic...
Stop. All right. She first said, if you compare first year to first year, do I need to remind y'all the first year of Trump was after President Obama fixed the economy? Literally, Donald Trump inherited a stock market that had been on the increase, the most consecutive job growth we had more than in decades. All of that. He literally walked in halfway to home plate, and she trying to act like he actually hit a home run. Biden comes in after the mess Donald Trump did when it came to COVID. So you are lying, Stacey Washington, by trying to say comparing first year to first year when the black president handed Donald Trump a very successful economy in America that he got to gloat about. Biden had to clean up the mess on aisle 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and 10 Donald Trump left. So first lie we just dealt with. Hit play.
President Biden crushed our oil and natural gas industry, canceled the Keystone XL pipeline, hit union workers where they hurt because the majority of the Keystone XL pipeline workers were union workers, and then proceeded to enact actual...
Okay, here she go lying again. First of all, Biden did not crush the oil and gas industry. That simply did not happen. Okay, in fact, environmentalists, matter of fact, Mustafa, you are one of the preeminent environmentalist experts in the country. Could you please share how environmentalists have not been happy with Biden not allowing the continuing and renewing of leases for oil and gas? Go right ahead.
Yeah, we have those in the fossil fuel industry who receive over $20 billion a year in fossil fuel subsidies. But we also know that they continue to make, hundreds of billions of dollars. So the fossil fuel industry most definitely has not been hurt. And we also know that, folks had to get together to stop all these subsidies that are going to things that are literally killing people and making folks sick in our communities.
All right, y'all. She also said, Biden killed the Keystone Pipeline. That's not even ours.
Okay.
Y'all, the pipeline, again, Mustafa, go ahead, and for these silly people, that is not our pipeline. It is not benefiting us. Go right ahead.
Yeah, no, those products are actually being shipped outside of our country. Just for context, we have 2.4 million miles of fossil fuel pipeline in our country. That's enough pipeline to actually go to the moon and back twice and on your way again to the moon. So she's incorrect. And, they continue to try and build more and more.
All right, press play.
Executive orders that hurt the oil and natural gas industry and then went around begging for oil and natural.
But hold on this point, are you denying that President Trump added literally trillions of dollars to the national debt with no intention of ever paying them off at all? He all these economic numbers are on the nation's credit card. And now Kevin McCarthy wants to cut social services. They want to cut benefits to families. They want to cut they want to cut veteran benefits to pay off the credit card that Donald Trump just ran off. Is that inaccurate?
No, I'm not denying that the national debt increased under Trump as it did under every other president before him. I am denying that the payments, the individual payments that you mentioned, were his idea. He signed them into law.
He signed them into law. So if he thought they were a bad idea, he could have vetoed the law, correct?
Yeah, and then what would you have said on cable news that he doesn't want to help people, like you're mischaracterizing the cuts that
leadership is about doing what is unpopular. We're not electing a homecoming queen. We're electing a president. If he thought it was a bad idea, he could have vetoed it, correct?
On my show, I would not talk over you, nor would I ask a question and before you're done answering it, come back in with more questions or continue to make the conversation one in which your viewers can't hear what we're saying. So the answer to your question about the unpaid tax cuts is that is the same spurious, incorrect assertion that is constantly made by Democrats who want to increase taxes that actually tax increases hurt people that look like you and me. Low tax burdens don't hurt Black Americans. They help Black Americans because a robust economy is one in which all Black Americans can find work and begin to experience the American dream, as you and I are already doing. So a conversation about tax policy in this short amount of time that starts off with you saying that the Trump tax cuts weren't paid for, that's inaccurate. Of course they were paid for. And not only was the response in the business sector of our economy a good one, but we saw the largest increase in people who are at the managerial level or the retail level, the largest increase in bonuses and pay in the history of our country happened after the Trump tax cuts. So we can't talk about the Trump tax cuts.
Stop, freeze. That was a bunch of bullshit we just heard right there. Okay, first of all, the companies made clear we are not spending the money from the tax cut on reinvesting in workers or increasing wages. They literally said we are going to do stock buybacks. She's touting the bonuses. Workers didn't get that damn money. Executives got the money. Who the hell does she think she's fooling? Other guy is low taxes that actually helps African Americans. You lying. The greatest beneficiary of the Trump tax cuts were the top 1%. All of these companies did stock buybacks. She's talking about retail jobs. Do you know how many retail companies shut down? And then COVID hit? Press play.
Without noting how good they were for Black Americans. We flourished during the Trump years. It doesn't matter what was said on cable news. We flourished during the Trump years. Lowest Black unemployment rate in the history of tracking that metric. So we can talk about the increase in the debt. I didn't like it. It wasn't my idea of good policy, but we were in a pandemic. It was unprecedented. People were trying to figure out what to do. We have also seen the debt increase under President Biden, but the biggest increase in regulatory pressure has also occurred under Biden, and also $87 billion for new IRS agents to level audits on people who earn like you and me. People who look like you and me will be the ones who are bearing the brunt of the audit pressure under the new IRS reality that's brought to us by the Democrats and the Biden administration.
What y'all just heard right there is 100% absolute unadulterated bullshit. The 87 billion, so let me explain to y'all. The $87 billion is because all these Republicans have been slashing the IRS for the past 2 decades, and the folks who've been making like a fat rat have been all of these billionaires. The people like Ken Griffin, the folks who spend millions so they don't get audited. Janet Yellen, the Treasury Secretary, has already said point blank that the new IRS agents and those audits are not going to be for anybody $400,000 or less. So, Stacey, what black folks are you talking about? See, you can try that BS on your show and other places, but you know that crap not gonna fly. You are straight lying, Stacey. You're lying. And the $87 billion is over a decade. Y'all been trying them little scare tactics like that. That's nonsensical. Oh, by the way, in the interview, Stacey kept citing, oh my God, the lowest unemployment rate. The black unemployment rate dropped to 5.3% under Donald Trump. They touted that as, oh my God, that's the lowest ever. Then she was like, hey, things are worse for black people under President Joe Biden. So y'all know what I had to do. I had to call our resident economist, Dr. Bill Spriggs, formerly head of the economics department at Howard University. Guess what, Stacey? Black unemployment under Biden, 5.0, lower than Donald Trump. Here's what Bill Spriggs also told me, Stacey. Stop lying, Stacey. This is what Bill Spriggs said. Under Donald Trump, in December 2019, 59.4% of the black population over 16 had a job. In March 2023, under Biden, 60.9% of black people had a job. He said, neither is a record, but for the first time, Stacey, listen, let me step in closer. Stacey, listen. Bill Spriggs, black economist, Howard University, know way more about the economy than you, said, quote, for the first time since 1863, the 60.9% of blacks working was higher than the 60.2% of whites working. So please, Stacey, please show me how black people were doing better under Donald Trump than they are now. You lying. You lying. You straight lying. Now, y'all, go ahead and play her little comments about inflation.
What specifically is Tim Scott's agenda for urban America and economics that would be different than what we have seen in the last 4 years? And then the other one is, you said Trump, and I know Trump did a lot with the opportunity zones, which we saw that there was ramifications with that too. So what specifically have you seen also in urban America and economics that would be different the last 4 years?
Okay, so you didn't specify what made you cringe about Senator Scott's announcement video, but I'll go. You did mention the economic part of the platform and the opportunity zones. So right now, under the Biden administration, since he took office, after he was elected, we've had an increase in the regulatory burden on average everyday citizens of over $14,000. And this has been tracked using government data on the regulatory burden and how that impacts Americans. So an additional $14,000 a year on every American household because of the additional regulations implemented by the Biden administration. Both Trump and Scott have a low regulatory pressure agenda. So that in and of itself saves Americans money. And then there's also the impact on inflation. When you have high inflation, that money comes right out of the pockets and bank accounts of Americans, regardless of their socioeconomic structure. So if you're on the low end, the pressure is higher for you. So couple that with the regulatory burden, and both of those Republicans that you asked about have a better agenda than the Biden administration.
And just as a way of follow-up,
here's the whole deal. So let me deal with that. Okay, that was cute, Stacey. She mentioned opportunity zones. Jason, you're there in Maryland, near Baltimore. I had one of the black pastors who was at the White House with Trump with the announcement of the opportunity zones. He came back months later and said it was an abysmal failure. I specifically asked the Trump administration for the data to show me how black people and people of color benefit from the opportunity zones. There is no data. The fact of the matter is the opportunity zones have not benefited the people who live there and work there. It's benefited the rich developers who actually get the tax breaks. So Senator Tim Scott, they keep touting opportunity zones. They cannot show you how it is having a positive impact on the people, especially the black people who are living and working there. But she also talked about inflation and all of those different things. And later talked about, how things are so much better under Donald Trump. We have sworn testimony before Congress that the greatest impact on inflation has nothing to do with Biden policies, nothing to do with Democratic policies. It has to do with corporate greed. It has to do with companies jacking up their prices, knowing full well the impact. They were bragging on earnings calls. We've never made as much money than we've been making. It was literally the pandemic. It was literally the supply chain. And then it was the companies jacking up prices. The same companies, Jason, that benefited with the tax breaks and did all of the corporate stock buybacks. Those are the facts which Stacey on the right somehow simply evaded her mental capacity to be able to understand.
And don't forget those CPE loans, too.
Yeah, it was frustrating for me to watch that interview because I think Robert was trying to be very polite and she still got really angry at one point. By the way, I also want to point out, just to add to what Mustafa said, that ExxonMobil in its first quarter this year had record profits of $11 billion. And they have $33 billion cash on hand. That's more than most developed nations. So this idea that somehow Biden has hurt the oil industry, I would love to see when they're not being hurt. You know what I mean? Like they're doing an incredible job right now. The other thing about wages for black folks in the fourth quarter of last year rose higher than any other demographic. I know people don't like to praise Biden or anything like that, but if you're going to blame him for certain things in the economy, you already pointed out, Roland, that unemployment was at its lowest point for black people and wages were up for black people. So I think we have to factor all of that in. When we talk about opportunity zones, which, again, I'm going to blame everybody, even Obama, Biden, Trump, all of these repackaged black capitalism, ideas that they bring every freaking administration that never work, going back to Nixon. Opportunity zones were the same sort of thing, where basically they got tax breaks for setting up in certain communities and brought all their workers from the suburbs, from where I live. So I think this is, companies that even I respect, did that. And they all got over and got rich, and black people got nothing from it. Baltimore, for example, looks exactly like it did before they had opportunity zones. It has the same issue.
But again, though, but Jason, even if you have them, I keep asking for the data. They can't show it. They literally cannot show how money invested has turned into this. They cannot. In Baltimore, they literally use those opportunity zones to give tax breaks to Under Armour in an area that wasn't even one of the opportunity zones areas. So it's bogus. And so Senator Tim Scott wants to put on opportunity zones. Hey, Timmy, please, by all means, come on the show and show me the data so I can understand it. But what I'm trying to lay out for here, what you heard from Stacey on the right, Washington, were simple lies. What you heard was her, Atima, walking through and just spouting stuff off and not getting and the pushback. And see, my deal is, then she at one point cited all of these things that Trump has done to help black people. Name them. See, I'll wait. I'll wait for you to name them, and we can go line by line, line by line, line by line to actually see. Even if Stacey wants to try to give Trump all the credit for the First Step Act, she can't even do that. Because the First Step Act originated in the House. Who was the person who carried it in the House? It was Congressman Hakeem Jeffries. It was a Democratic House that actually did it. And then when it went to the Senate, and here's the deal, Stacey, try me if you want to, because I personally met with Jared Kushner at the White House regarding it. So you want to have this conversation, Stacey? Come on, boo, let's have it. When it went to the Senate, it was Senator Dick Durbin and Republican Chuck Grassley, both on the Judiciary Committee, who said, this ain't strong enough. And then it was Senator Cory Booker and Senator Kamala Harris and others who said this has to be strengthened. The bill was strengthened in the Senate, was sent back to the House, was passed, then went to him to be signed. Y'all don't want no parts of this if y'all want to have a real conversation. The fact of the matter is, if you out there, Stacey, pumping up Donald Trump, you selling wolf tickets about what he did for black people. And if he did some stuff that was positive for black people, show me. But I guarantee you, it's a short-ass list. Atima, about 30 seconds before I gotta go to the break, go.
I was just going to say that there was not anything there that I could even pull that was remotely true. And I'm used to dealing with at least some grain of truth in some of these arguments. It's amazing to me, I think, one, because even when she mentioned the pandemic, she's like, oh, it was better under Trump. Now, I remember distinctly him actually just lying about the damage of the pandemic, insisting that we didn't need to wear masks, insisting that everything was just fine. We now have a recording, thanks to, I can't remember which one of the Watergate reporters, I think it was Bob Woodward, who had him say, oh yeah, apparently this thing is really terrible and it could actually kill people. Back in February, because they knew it was coming. He knew how bad it was going to be. He refused to wear a mask. He would insult people in meetings. And then they did a shutdown for a couple of months. And then here's the interesting thing. After that, everybody's like, we got to reopen. We got to reopen. We got to reopen. But you know who got hurt in all of that? The black people on the front line, the black and brown workers on the front line who were at these grocery stores, who were at these restaurants. And, you know, that was the one that struck me the most, because that has harmed so much of our community.
Bottom line is, it was a whole bunch of lies. So here's the whole deal, Stacey. If you want to come back and have a real conversation, have it when I'm here. Come on back. I'm extending the invite, but I'm letting you know right now, I ain't letting no lying happen. So you better come with your facts, or I'm gonna fact check you in real time. Let me know what you want to do. You watching Roland Martin Unfiltered on the Black Star Network. talk about blackness and what happens in black culture, we're about covering these things that matter to us, speaking to our issues and concerns.
This is a genuine people-powered movement.
There's a lot of stuff that we're not getting. You get it, and you spread the word.
We wish to plead our own cause. Too long have others spoken for us. We cannot tell our own story if we can't pay for it.
This is about covering us.
Invest in black-owned media.
Your dollars matter. We don't have to keep asking them to cover our stuff. So please support us in what we do, folks.
We want to hit 2,000 people, $50 this month, raise $100,000. We're behind 100,000, so we want to hit that. Y'all money makes this possible.
Checks and money orders go to P.O. Box 57196, Washington, D.C. 20037-0196. The Cash App is $RM Unfiltered. PayPal is R Martin Unfiltered. Venmo is RM Unfiltered. Zelle is Roland@RolandSMartin.com.
On a next, A Balanced Life with me, Dr. Jackie, we talk about a hard, cold fact. Not all healthcare is created equal in this country, especially if you're a person of color.
So many of us, Black families, we rely upon each other heavily. A lot of us aren't necessarily sure how to best communicate with our healthcare providers.
How to take charge and balance the scales. Your life may depend on it. That's next on A Balanced Life on Black Star Network.
Hi, this is Essence Atkins.
Hey, I'm Deion Cole from Blackish.
Hey, everybody, this is your man, Fred Hammond, and you're watching Roland Martin, my man, Unfiltered.
Listen. All right, folks, we got Black and Missing. Trinity King left her Miami Gardens, Florida home on April 19th and has not been seen since. The 15-year-old is 5 feet 2 inches tall, weighs 120 pounds, with black hair and brown eyes. Anyone with information about Trinity King should call the Miami-Dade, Florida Police Department at 305-476-5423, 305-476-5423. All right, folks, Carolyn Bryant Donham, of course, the white racist woman whose lies led to the lynching of Emmett Till, she died. Okay, I'm sure Satan greeted her with open arms in hell. So this newspaper, the Yazoo Herald, had the audacity to write an editorial. Now, mind you, this is in a city that is 75% black. It's called The Pursuit of Donham Finally Over. They basically called out people who were trying to demand justice for her, even saying that, oh, she lived the last years of her life essentially in hiding, and the only thing that stopped all of this was her death. Mustafa, I recall there being a 100-year-old former Nazi soldier who lived in the United States, and the Jewish folks who were trying to prosecute anybody involved with the Holocaust hauled his ass into jail, hauled him into court, convicted him, and he got deported. They didn't give a damn that he was 100 years old. So I'm just curious. Basically, what this editorial is saying is, black folks, we should just back off justice. Let's not make a big thing out of this. It was just a little wrong to keep pursuing her, even though her racist ass is the reason Emmett Till was lynched.
That's right. She took Emmett's life. She was the main thrust in him losing his life. And I give props to my Jewish brothers and sisters who don't give an inch and who continue to pursue those who have played a role, you know, in the injustices and the Holocaust that happened. And we should do the exact same thing. If someone takes a life in our community, it doesn't matter if they are 100 or if they are 18, that we should utilize all of our ability to make sure that they are brought to justice. It's just that simple. But if folks continue to devalue our lives, then they bring that into the overall analysis of some of these situations that are going on. Because we've seen elders in our community who have gone to jail when others have been given parole. So we just need to keep it real. And all we have ever asked for is for there to be an equalness in the justice system inside of our country.
Tegna, is white folks today who still want to chase down anybody and everybody involved in 9/11? Oh, but we got to move on.
Yeah. Well, I think the thing that's interesting, and I was thinking about the case of Byron Della Beckwith, who murdered Medgar Evers. And I thought, isn't it funny? We were able to put this white man in jail, rightfully. He was much older at the time. By the time they got him, he got off the first time. And then by the second time, when he was prosecuted in the 90s by Doug Jones, who's the attorney on that case, who became the U.S. Senator of Alabama. By the time he was prosecuted, he was a much older man. We put him in jail. It really struck me that we could never land it with Carolyn Donham Bryant, given all of the testimony and the eyewitness accounts. And the only thing that I can think about it is, to the end, this woman was able to get away with it because we protected white womanhood, which was the premise, right, on what these men did on her lie. It's protecting white womanhood. It's a tenet of white supremacy. And to the end, she was able to escape capture because white people who support her, white supremacists, white racist ideology, holds up somebody like Carolyn Donham Bryant and what she said, and that even in the end, even though it's very clear that her words were the ones that directly led to his lynching, that we still can't do what's right.
Jason, this is a 75% black city. Every black person in that town should say, don't buy that trash newspaper ever again until they apologize and take that crap down.
Yeah, agreed. You know, it's a 75% black city, but who has 75% of the power? I'm not so sure that black people do. Obviously, I doubt that was written by a black person. I doubt that was approved by a black editor. I doubt that the people who own that newspaper or that publication are black. So I think one of the things we need to recognize is, of course, they will benefit off of black dollars. Do not subscribe to that publication. Do not read it. Do not share it. Even though we see it here and we're making people aware of it, don't share it. Don't allow advertisers to advertise with it. If you know an advertiser there, then, you know, tell that advertiser, make it known that you do not support what just happened, because this can't just fly. We just can't let things like this happen. And Carolyn Bryant is not here to be accountable, but that newspaper that put that headline, they can be held accountable.
Right. So here's the deal. The editorial actually originated, this is from Ashton Pittman. The editorial originated with the Greenwood Commonwealth, which is located in Greenwood, Mississippi. Greenwood, Mississippi is 72% black. And so that's where it originated. The Yazoo Herald, they actually simply reran that editorial. Yazoo, I'm sorry. Well, they're a bunch of Yahoos. But that's what it is. But, so again, Greenwood, Mississippi, 72% black. Yazoo City, Mississippi, 72.5% black. If you're black in Yazoo City or Greenwood, Mississippi, y'all should not support and purchase that newspaper again for that travesty of an editorial they published regarding Carolyn Bryant. Let me be perfectly clear. Is there white racists out there? Every single open case involving a lynching of somebody black was domestic terrorism and murder, and we should be chasing those folks to the end of the earth to hold them accountable. Damn forgiveness, damn leniency. I'ma act like just like the folks who are Jewish. I don't care if that Nazi's 105 years old. Throw their ass in jail for what they actually were involved with. That should be the same position we have when it comes to the people who went after and destroyed and killed our ancestors. We'll be back on Roland Martin Unfiltered on the Black Star Network.
Next on the Black Table with me, Greg Carr. We look at the history of emancipation around the world, including right here in the United States, the so-called end of slavery. Trust me, it's a history lesson that bears no resemblance to what you learned in school. Professor Chris Manjapra, author, scholar, amazing teacher, joins us to talk about his latest book, Black Ghost of Empire, The Death of Slavery and the Failure of Emancipation. He explains why the end of slavery was no end at all, but instead a collection of laws and policies designed to preserve the status quo of racial oppression.
The real problem is that the problems that slavery invented have continued over time. And what reparations are really about is saying, how do we really transform society, right? And stop racial violence, which is so endemic.
What we need to do about it on the next installment of The Black Table, right here on the Black Star Network.
On the next Get Wealthy with me, Deborah Owens, America's Wealth Coach, nurses are the backbone of the healthcare industry, and yet only 7% of them are Black. What's the reason for that low number? Well, a lack of opportunities and growth in their profession. Joining us on the next Get Wealthy is Needy Bartanilli. She's going to be sharing exactly what nurses need to do and what approach they need to take ownership of their success.
So the Black Nurse Collaborative really spawned from a place and a desire to create opportunities to uplift each other, those of us in the profession, to also look and reach back and create pipelines and opportunities for other nurses like us.
That's right here on Get Wealthy, only on Black Star Network.
Ha 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 yeah. Hey, I'm Antonique Smith.
What up, Lana Well, and you are watching Roland Martin Unfiltered.
All right, folks, we've often talked about the need for diverse-owned media for Blacks, for African Americans, Latinos, Asians, and others to be owning media, especially those in the public airwaves. Sue Kim, Standard General, they're still trying to close this deal down to acquire a group of TV stations owned by Tegna. New Jersey Senator Robert Menendez took to the floor of the United States Senate to speak about this very issue, and here's what he had to say.
Mr. President, I come to the floor to highlight what I consider a grave injustice and urge us to do something about it. I do so because I remain deeply concerned about an issue that often flies under the radar, which is our nation's severe lack of diversity when it comes to broadcast station ownership. Mr. President, 3 years ago, the Leadership Conference on Civil and Human Rights published a report titled The Abysmal State of Media Ownership Diversity in America. And that is an apt title, especially because according to the Federal Communications Commission, the agency responsible for regulating broadcasters, minorities in America make up less than 3% of all broadcast station owners. For women, the numbers aren't much better. They account for less than 6% of all station owners. So, Mr. President, these abysmal figures from the FCC, consistently in the single digits, are unacceptable. They are an affront to the incredible diversity that makes America the exceptional nation that it is. And simply put, we do ourselves an enormous disservice when the vast majority of TV and radio stations in America are predominantly owned by white men. This lack of diversity in broadcasting is a problem that materially affects the people I represent in New Jersey. Even as trusted sources of local news continue to be decimated, broadcast media stations play a crucial role in educating the public. They are an invaluable source of information, a safe harbor, particularly for minority communities, at a time when new consumers continue to be bombarded with misinformation and disinformation. Very often, speaking in one element of the Hispanic community, radio is what the community turns to in the case of an emergency. During the pandemic, it's where they turn to get trusted information about how to take care of themselves and their families. In storms, tornadoes, hurricanes, they are the preferred entity. So all of us have in this chamber a duty to be responsible stewards of the public airwaves. And we do this by ensuring that the ownership of stations reflects the audiences that they reach. When minority communities turn on the radio and the television, the programming should be about events in their community, very possibly in a language that they understand, speaking about a culture they know, addressing issues they care about the most. We can only achieve this by having broadcast station leaders with similar life experiences to their listeners and viewers alike. Make no mistake, if we hope to raise the appalling numbers of minority-owned broadcast stations in America, it starts with seizing every opportunity in front of us to increase their ranks. It's long past time that the regulators at the Federal Communication Commission prioritize diversity in broadcast ownership. Now, right now, the FCC has before it the case of Soo Kim, a Korean-American entrepreneur who has applied to acquire Tegna Broadcasting. Should the deal go through, it would make Tegna the largest minority-owned broadcast station group in the country. However, for more than a year, this deal has been in limbo. Now, I'm not here to speak about all the details of this deal or the pros and cons of its merits, but basic fairness dictates that the FCC should make a decision one way or another, and not just veto it through, in essence, inaction. That's not the American way. A vote is a fair shot and a way to see how the Commission will react to diversity issues when they become available. And diversity, for me, Mr. President, means the fullness of diversity. It means African American, it means Hispanic Americans, it means women, it means LGBTQ Americans, and yes, it means Asian Americans. We need the FCC commissioners to commit to increasing diversity in media ownership, not just in words, but with actions. And I, for one, will not support nominees for the FCC if they are unwilling to support diversity, including by acting in a way that denies a vote to a diverse applicant. They cannot argue that broadcast station owners should reflect their audiences, publicly saying, and I quote, this is the FCC, "We need to do better," end quote. Well, that's great. And then you miss the opportunities to expand diversity in broadcasting when it's before you. Now, in the past, I've tried to address this issue head-on through legislation. I'll continue to follow that route as well. Last Congress, alongside Senator Peters, I introduced a bill, the Broadcast Voices Act, that would help address the lack of diversity in the industry through innovations in our tax code. Through a federal tax incentive, our bill would ensure that women and minority-owned stations can compete on a level playing field to provide a benefit to audiences. It would reestablish a program in order to re-incentivize broadcast ownership. And I say re-incentivize because Congress has actually done this before. During the nearly 2 decades that this tax incentive, as outlined in the Broadcast Voices Act, was active, minority ownership and diversity in the broadcast media industry grew 5-fold. It grew 5-fold. So think about where it was when I referred to the earlier percentages of where we're at today. But this tax provision helped increase it from virtually nothing to fivefold. That's right. The number of minority owners quintupled when the incentive was in place. So make no mistake, the task in front of us is clear. Government regulators at the FCC have identified that there is a diversity problem in broadcast ownership. As I have said, there are steps this body can take to address it through the Broadcast Voices Act. But the FCC has its share of this burden as well. It must more than talk the talk. It must walk the walk on the issue of diversity in media ownership. Now, I push for diverse candidates at every agency. I'll continue to do so. I am hopeful that the administration seizes the opportunity before them to nominate a diverse candidate to the Federal Communications Commission. Because part of taking proactive steps on industry diversity is ensuring that the regulator itself is more diverse. And my first question to any FCC nominee I meet will be, what actions will you take if confirmed to expand diversity in broadcast ownership? Or, if they are a present FCC commissioner seeking to be reestablished at the commission, voted on again to return to the commission, what actions have you taken to expand diversity in broadcast ownership? Only if we as members press this issue will things change. So, Mr. President, it's time to afford our communities the representation in media they deserve, not just the representation that others think they deserve. Thank you, Mr. President. With that, I yield the floor.
Team, here's what I don't understand. It's real simple. You're the FCC. You're the commission. Don't just dump it off onto an administrative judge. Have an actual vote. Lead. If you want to vote it down, vote it down. But at least take a vote.
Yeah, absolutely. We know that the FCC has a lot of power, to change how media works. I mean, they were the folks who helped expand sort of the ability for conservative media to expand. And they can do this here again because we need representation in media, such as yourself and others, if we're going to have a democracy that is more accountable.
Jason.
Yeah, I mean, I'll agree with what was just said. I think the FCC has a lot of power. They try to, sometimes under some administrations, they try to stay hands off. We can't afford that. I think that in order to have a representative voice for the entire country, you have to have a diverse media, and the FCC can lead in that regard. And it seems like they're dropping the ball at this point.
Mustafa.
When you know better, do better. 1975, WGPR in Detroit, Michigan was the first African-American owned station. And out of that came training for all kinds of brothers and sisters to move on to other places. It's sort of like the Black Star Network. We need to make sure that we are diversifying the sets of opportunities in the media space to make sure that we're holding our country accountable and also highlighting the beauty that exists inside of our culture.
Indeed. All right, folks, hold tight 1 second. We come back. Congressman Maxine Waters will join us to share her thoughts and reflections on Mayor Belafonte, who passed away last Tuesday, a week ago today, at the age of 96. You're watching Roland Martin Unfiltered on the Black Star Network. Black Star Network is here.
Oh, no punch! I'm real revolutionary right now.
Thank you for being the voice of Black America.
All momentum we have now, we have to keep this going.
The video looks phenomenal.
See, there's a difference between Black Star Network and Black-owned media and something like CNN.
You can't be Black-owned media and be scared.
It's time to be smart.
Bring your eyeballs home.
You dig?
I lost my daughter. I didn't know where she was. So I had to figure out how to survive, how to eat, how to live. I don't want to go into the details because she's here, first of all. She may not want me telling that story. But possession of her, the family broke down, fell apart. I was homeless. I had to figure out, I didn't have a manager or an agent or anybody anymore, and I'm the talent. So I got to figure out how to be the agent. I had to figure out, how does business work?
It was a week ago, folks. We paid tribute to the life and legacy of the great Harry Belafonte, who passed away at the age of 96. He was the second just amazing individual who became an ancestor. Before that was Randall Robinson. When he passed away, Congresswoman Maxine Waters joined us to share her thoughts and reflections on Randall Robinson, and she is with us today to share her thoughts about Harry Belafonte. Congresswoman, always glad to have you back. Good to see you at the African American Mayors Association conference there in Washington, D.C. Just your thoughts and reflections on the amazing Harry Belafonte.
Well, first of all, let me say to you, Roland Martin, thank you for having the wisdom and the ability to document the work of our heroes. This isn't done in the white media, but you do not miss the opportunity to make sure people understand these contributions. You're absolutely right about Randall. You know, I went to St. Kitts. I could not stay here. I had to go. We had worked so closely together on so many issues, including South Africa and the banana issue in the Caribbean, and on and on and on. I was on that board of Trans-Africa where I worked closely with him. And so because of you, we're able to tell the stories, not only of him, but of Harry Belafonte, as you just mentioned. Harry Belafonte was a superstar. This brilliant entertainer and singer who always thought about the people in his songs. Deo, Deo, daylight coming, I want to go home, working in the fields. He's talking about the poor people, the people that are out there working, singing about them, telling their story. But it was this kind of attitude and the work that took him into the civil rights movement when he was at the top of his game. Not only did he march with Dr. Martin Luther King, he became an advisor to Dr. Martin Luther King, and he put his money where his mouth was and supported the civil rights movement and Dr. King in so many ways. And so I had the opportunity to work closely with him on South Africa. We worked together not only to help get rid of apartheid in South Africa, working very closely with Nelson Mandela, but of course, when Nelson Mandela was released from prison, we worked together to bring him into the United States, and we put together the program for him in the Los Angeles area. And I think Harry Belafonte probably was with him when he traveled to New York and maybe some other places. But we did a huge...
Oh, he was. In fact, Mr. B actually, he writes about it in his book. He was responsible for the entire U.S. schedule. And there were a lot of people who wanted to meet with Mandela, and it was Harry Belafonte who either said yay or nay.
Well, I want to tell you, he was a forceful human being. But, you know, to be as popular and as wealthy and as well-known and as loved as he was, he took time for the civil rights movement. He didn't just say, I have made it. I am everything that anybody who wished to be popular and wealthy and all of that could be. He loved the work of Dr. Martin Luther King. He loved Dr. Martin Luther King, and he worked with him. He advised them. He looked after him. He did everything that he possibly could. And he felt the same way about Nelson Mandela. Nelson Mandela had given his life to getting rid of apartheid in South Africa, served the time in prison. Harry Belafonte was there, visited him when he was in prison, working with him, with the ANC, working with him to confront, apartheid in South Africa, bringing him into the United States where we could all thank him for his contributions and celebrate him. I don't know if any human being could have done more than he did. As a matter of fact, he did more, because do you know he became the mentor for Kaepernick? And it was he that called me about Kaepernick and asked me about a conversation that we had had at an ACLU event where he wanted to get together and do something with the Black Caucus that never really happened. But even in his later years, here he was working with Kaepernick and giving him the kind of support that Kaepernick did not receive enough of from throughout our communities. So I'm pleased to be here with you today to honor him. Yes. Yep.
A lot of people, Congresswoman, may not understand the dire food issues that took place on the continent in the late 70s, 80s, and 90s. It was Harry Belafonte who came up with the idea for We Are the World, who spent time in Ethiopia, in those countries, and also lobbying, pushing Congress to do more to help the poor. He was someone who was focused and fixated on helping the poorest of the poor in this country and in this world.
Absolutely, and you're absolutely right. There were times when he let members of Congress know that he thought they weren't doing enough. And members of the Black Caucus even, he did not hold back. He challenged and he pushed and he spoke his mind. He was very outspoken, and he spoke his mind, and he was not only, looking out for the poor and organizing and all of that, he was pushing others that they should be doing more.
You spend a lot of people who are entertainers today. They reach out to you. You have different folks. You had Diddy at Congressional Black Caucus, AOC. You've had so many others, and so many of them have went to see Mr. B, sat at his feet, his group Sankofa, because he understood that no one person lives forever. But if you're able to touch the next generation and get them to begin to do more. And so I've seen Jamie Foxx, Cynthia Entertainer, Jesse Williams, Erica Alexander, Rosario Dawson. I can go on and on and on. Maxwell, John Legend. So many of them who spent a lot of time with him to carry it forth.
It's a wonderful thing when you have someone like Harry Belafonte who's willing to allow those who want to talk, who want to have his opinion, who want to know about his life, want to know about his work for the poor, with Martin Luther King, with Nelson Mandela, that he would allow them to come and spend time with him and share the stories and share the special moments. And they really did appreciate that. And that was a wonderful thing, because oftentimes we have people who are powerful who don't have time. They don't wish to give of themselves in that way. But he became, the man of wisdom who was willing to share and to advise and to support. And that's why I mentioned Kaepernick, because Kaepernick was not getting all of the support that he needed. But Harry Belafonte embraced him and worked with him and mentored him in ways that I'm sure he will talk about for the rest of his life. He'll know, because Harry Belafonte absolutely played an important part in his life at a very special time.
Well, Congresswoman, it's always a pleasure to have you. We appreciate all the work you do. And let me say, for the folks who are watching, who understand you're one of the biggest folks out there fighting on behalf of black-owned media to make sure that we get federal advertising contracts and things along those lines. Because again, if we're not telling our story, we sure as can't hope and depend somebody else do it. That's why we've got to have black-owned media. So we appreciate all the work that you've done on behalf of those of us who are trying to make it happen every day.
I appreciate you because you're a real warrior and you're a pioneer, and you're going after what is right and inclusion for blacks in the media in ways that nobody else is doing. You're not afraid. You're making the fight, and I appreciate that, and thank you so very much.
All right, thanks so much. I appreciate it. Folks, going to a break. We'll be right back. I'm Roland Martin, Unfiltered, the Black Star Network. Don't forget YouTube. Hit that like button. Same thing, Facebook or the OTT app as well. Speaking of the OTT app, download the Black Star Network app. We got 1 million subscribers on our YouTube channel. We need 1 million downloads of the Black Star Network app. We're available on all platforms: Apple phone, Android phone, Apple TV, Android TV, Roku, Amazon Fire TV, Xbox One, Samsung Smart TV. You can also watch us on 24-hour, 7-day-a-week streaming channel on Amazon News. If you click Amazon Fire, you click Amazon News, you can check out the 24-hour streaming channel. If you want to watch this show and the other shows and the specials that we have and the docuseries, all of that stuff is on our streaming channel. Also, support my book, White Fear, How the Browning of America is Making White Folks Lose Their Minds. Available bookstores nationwide, Amazon, Barnes & Noble, Target. Download a copy on Audible as well. We'll be right back.
Hatred on the streets, a horrific scene, a white nationalist rally that descended into deadly violence.
White people are losing their damn minds.
As an angry pro-Trump mob storms the U.S. Capitol,
We're about to see the rise of what I call white minority resistance. We have seen white folks in this country who simply cannot tolerate black folks voting.
I think what we're seeing is the inevitable result of violent denial.
This is part of American history. Every time that people of color have made progress, whether real or symbolic, there has been what Carol Anderson at Emory University calls white rage as a backlash.
This is the rise of the Proud Boys and the Boogaloo Boys. America, there's going to be more of this.
Here's all the Proud Boys, guys.
This country is getting increasingly racist in its behaviors and its attitudes because of the fear of white people.
The fear that they're taking our jobs, they're taking our resources, they're taking our women. This is white fear.
On A Balanced Life with me, Dr. Jackie, we talk about a hard, cold fact. Not all healthcare is created equal in this country, especially if you're a person of color.
So many of us, Black families, we rely upon each other heavily. A lot of us aren't necessarily sure how to best communicate with our healthcare providers.
How to take charge and balance the scales. Your life may depend on it. That's next on A Balanced Life on Black Star Network.
Hi, y'all doing? It's your favorite funny girl, Amanda Seals.
Hi, I'm Anthony Brown from Anthony Brown and Group Therapy.
What up, Lana Well, and you are watching Roland Martin Unfiltered.
All right, folks, the fourth officer involved in the death of George Floyd has been found guilty. A jury convicted Tu Thao of aiding and abetting manslaughter in the May 2020 incident. Of course, the other officers were also found guilty on charges. Derek Chauvin, of course, also was found guilty as well. Thao is facing up to 57 months in prison. His sentencing is set for August 7th. Now let's go to Memphis, where the white Memphis police officer, Preston Hemphill, who was seen on body camera footage during the Tyree Nichols fatal traffic stop, he is not going to face criminal charges. Hemphill's lawyer and Shelby County DA Steve Mulroy announced that Hemphill would not face any charges as he was not present during the beating, and autopsy results are expected to confirm that Nichols died as a result of the injuries sustained in the loss. Hemphill was fired from the Memphis Police Department for violating multiple department policies during the incident. This, Mustafa, I dare say, again, is what has to be done. Sure, the white cop in Memphis not being held accountable was indeed fired, but the cops involved in George Floyd's death, those folks were involved in his death, should go to prison. This is the accountability that we've got to have when cops do wrong in this country.
Yeah, it's the only way that folks will begin to have trust, in our police system, in our legal system, is that there has to be real accountability. And when we see these folks who are doing these types of injustices, whether it's taking of a life or injuring someone, then police have to be held to the exact same level or a higher level than everyday citizens. So when you put on that badge, there's a responsibility that comes with that. And if you break that promise, that trust, then accountability has to come into the equation.
And Jason, what is always just so interesting here, you have these cases. This is a perfect example where these Republicans whine about progressive DAs, but those are the folks who are holding cops accountable. A lot of these hardcore pro-law enforcement, Republicans, conservative, largely white male DAs, they're not.
That's absolutely correct. And the other thing we have to remember and always remind ourselves is that Republicans love law enforcement until they don't, until they're willing to beat them up at the Capitol. So this idea that they are, so pro Blue Lives Matter and being a cop is a hard job, they were certainly willing to tase them and stomp them out at the Capitol. But, we need prosecutors who are going to hold law enforcement accountable when they do things wrong. I'm also an advocate that we need to pay cops more. So I think it's a both ways kind of thing because I expect more from you when I pay you more. But at the same time, if you commit a crime as a police officer, that's even more egregious than a criminal doing it, because you are literally paid to enforce the law. And so that law enforcement need to be held accountable when they run afoul of the law. And we need the prosecutors who are going to do it.
Mm-hmm. That is absolutely correct. Amira, go ahead. Atima, go ahead.
Yeah, I was just going to say that 1,000% agree with that. And I would go, I would definitely say I differ on the issue of paying police more, but I definitely think they need to be held more accountable and, not just electing, progressive prosecutors, but also looking at who's your sheriff in these communities. If you have elections, who are your, handling, those are the people who oversee your jails. So actually really understanding how the criminal legal system works in your community, how people are treated in jails, how people are brought through the legal system, how to reform it. And that is something that people can do in most cases by voting. And until Ferguson, most people weren't even aware or paid attention to what was happening with the, as you said, the district attorneys, Commonwealth attorneys in their areas. So elections here definitely matter. And this is where a lot of our folks can have a lot of impact to change the process and hold our elected officials accountable and the police accountable by extension.
Folks, New York Mayor Eric Adams is going after Republican Texas Governor Greg Abbott, saying, why is he targeting black mayors with his immigrant bus trips? That's right. Adams previously suggested that black-run cities were the subject of racial hatred behind Abbott's policy. Abbott has been busing asylum seekers to various towns led by Democratic mayors such as Washington, D.C., New York City, and Chicago. Governor Abbott pushed back against Adams' claim, saying that migrants willingly choose to go to New York City as his staff said they had seen migrants raise their hands to go on buses to a sanctuary city. Outgoing Chicago Mayor Lori Lightfoot has also pleaded with Abbott to halt the busing program. See, here's what I also find to be real interesting here, Jason, and that is all of these folks in Texas. I'm born and raised there. They are up in arms about illegal immigrants, but they also use those same illegal immigrants or undocumented workers when it comes to the census to get representation. Folks don't realize that when they're counting people for the census, what do Republicans do? They use those numbers to increase their numbers in a congressional delegation, those same numbers that included the undocumented workers.
You know, I'm not, let me be clear, I'm not drawing a one-to-one, but I mean, that's kind of what they did with slavery, you know, in terms of getting representation. That's how you have the three-fifths compromise, is when you don't recognize somebody and their rights and many things like that, you still want them to give you representation so you can, you know, do other things politically. So we've seen that. And one of the things that I will say is Lori Lightfoot, for all of, you know, the things that people criticize her for, she is absolutely right in what she said, is that these people are being loaded on buses, not given medical treatment. Some of them are sexual assault victims. They are not given any treatment in Texas. They just load you on a bus when people actually need help immediately. But they don't try to do any of that and then try to say, well, you're a sanctuary city, and all these ridiculous claims that they make. And again, this is, you know, oftentimes similar to the reverse freedom rides that we saw in the 60s, where they were sending people to, you know, Cape Cod because they wanted to get at, you know, the elites and the Kennedys and all of that. They were trying to do the same thing, sending them to Cape Cod and Hyannisport. So this is a repeat of what we've seen in the past when they took people from the South and they put them in communities. So Mayor Adams, I don't know if they're directly targeting black mayors, but it certainly does not look good what they're doing. They're not supporting human rights and immigrant rights.
Of course not, team, and that's simply the game that they play. And they're going to continue playing that game. And, you know, what's sad is in Texas, in the midterm, 75% of young voters didn't even vote in the election. And these folks, people like Greg Abbott, Dan Patrick, they're still in power.
Yeah. And I mean, I've always said Texas is not a red state. It is a voter suppression state. And they are working really hard to make it impossible. You know, they've taken away so many different things, the voter ID, all of these things in place. I think they even took away the ability when you used to just like be able to just vote a straight ticket. They took that away because they realized people were using that to just vote all the way down for Democrats in the state. They got real scared after Ted Cruz almost lost, and they don't even like Ted Cruz all that much. And so, you know, Texas can change. Absolutely. I believe the numbers are there in the cities, which are primarily a lot of black and brown voters, a lot of white liberals. But yeah, I mean, it's only going to get changed through elections and really continuing the fight. I know there's a lot of good folks doing that work on the ground, but you know, what Abbott is going to continue to do is to traffic these individuals as political points for him, maybe not in a presidential run in 24, but something eventually. And, you know, this is, you know, definitely different when, you know, somebody, I think the New York Post or one of these conservative outlets try to say, oh, well, you've got the El Paso mayor doing the same thing, and he's a Democrat. And El Paso mayor was actually calling the mayors. He was coordinating. He was trying to get services for these people, making sure that they were okay when they gone on these buses, and then saying, where do you want to go, and getting them connected to these places. Abbott's not sending any calls. He's not taking care of these people. He's just trafficking them across lines to make a political point.
Oh, that's what they are very good at. All right, folks, got to go to a break. We come back. Our marketplace segment right here, Roland Martin Unfiltered on the Black Star Network.
When you talk about blackness,
and what happens in black culture. We're about covering these things that matter to us, speaking to our issues and concerns.
This is a genuine people-powered movement.
There's a lot of stuff that we're not getting. You get it, and you spread the word.
We wish to plead our own cause. Too long have others spoken for us. We cannot tell our own story if we can't pay for it. This is about covering us. Invest in black-owned media. Your dollars matter. We don't have to keep asking them to cover our stuff. So please support us in what we do, folks. We want to hit 2,000 people, $50 this month, raise $100,000. We're behind 100,000, so we want to hit that. Y'all money makes this possible. Check some money orders. Go to P.O. Box 57196, Washington, D.C. 20037-0196. The Cash App is $RM Unfiltered. PayPal is R Martin Unfiltered. Venmo is RM Unfiltered. Zelle is Roland at RolandSMartin.com.
Hi, I'm Dr. Jackie Hood Martin, and I have a question for you. Ever feel as if your life is teetering and the weight and pressure of the world is consistently on your shoulders? Well, let me tell you, living a balanced life isn't easy. Join me each Tuesday on Black Star Network for A Balanced Life with Dr. Jackie. We'll laugh together, cry together, pull ourselves together, and cheer each other on. So join me for new shows each Tuesday on Black Star Network, A Balanced Life with Dr. Jackie.
Hey, I'm Arnaz J. Black TV does matter, dang it.
Hey, what's up, y'all? It's your boy, Jacob Lattimore, and you're now watching Roland Martin right now.
Stay woke.
All right, folks, a mother's quest to create some unique looks for her daughter has now led to an international business. Danielle Onusian started Kalia Kobe out of the trunk of her car. It was 8 years ago, selling a combination of her handmade creations and custom costumes at kids' parties and pop-up shops throughout Atlanta and the Bahamas. Well, the sales got so good, she opened a boutique in the Bahamas, becoming a traveling entrepreneur and stylist for hundreds of kids and their families. Danielle joins us from Atlanta to talk about her business. Danielle, glad to have you. How you doing?
Well, I'm even better now that I'm on with you. How are you?
Doing great. So this thing is taking off, huh?
Yes, I mean, it's exciting. You know, the main thing about this, Roland, is I'm a native of the Bahamas. Whoop, whoop. 242 in the house. Okay, and this has just been an exciting venture. We needed this type of styling. We needed this type of service. I found a niche in the Bahamas, but soon after it took off, we discovered that there were so many people in the United States who also need and desire for their kids to look immaculate for every possible occasion, whether it's birthdays, christenings, you name it, any occasion. We do everything at Calico Bay. And so we decided to bring a piece of paradise over to the United States. And so we are now ready to serve anywhere that USPS ships.
So you say they're costumes. What are the costumes for? Is it for different parties and functions?
Oh, absolutely. So I do custom costuming. So let's just say your kid is into Peppa Pig. Then Peppa Pig it is. We do a full head-to-toe ensemble, all custom made by myself. If they're into Star Wars, The Mandalorian, whatever it is that your kid desires, you can have a custom costume made specifically for your child by myself and my team. That's what we specialize in, Roland, just giving kids a unique outlet. Also, not boxing them in. Many kids desire to have the traditional garb that we wore when we were growing up. But there are kids now that want to wear their church dress with high-top sneakers. We don't want to box them in. We're here to embrace every child and to make dressing an absolute fantastic experience for your kids.
Oh, that's pretty cool there. And so, so you started there in the Bahamas. And so So what did happen? Did other people begin to hear, and it was part of the problem that, that they just, when you go into these stores and you're seeing, superheroes and stuff like that, and it's sort of limiting. And so how did word begin to spread?
Well, what happened was we're on social media, and many Americans were seeing our product, but realized that we were located in the Bahamas. And so what I would have to do, because I am resident in Atlanta, I have an office here, okay, and my family and I live here full time. As you mentioned earlier, I'm a traveling stylist, so the boutique is in the Bahamas. However, they weren't able to access these items as readily as they would have wanted to. And so what I ended up doing was having to ensure that I could give access. So now that the word has spread on social media, they're like, listen, we want to be able to buy these things. We want it at our fingertips. So hence we relaunched our website at www.calicobay.com, Calico with a K, and I'm sure they'll put it up on the screen for you. And so now anyone in the United States is able to shop our fashions and access my custom styling for kids of all ages.
Questions from the panel. Atima, you first.
Well, I think this is a quite amazing product. Where are you? Where are sort of you like widely available? How can folks essentially order from you? And yeah, basically.
Sure. So right now you can jump on our website. It's www.calico, that's KALICO, kids.com. You can jump on our website and see some of our amazing offerings for boys and girls. We service kids of all ages. We have just recently launched. So if you don't see your kid's size, stay connected because we're constantly updating. We're very new to the U.S., and so we're adding new items constantly. But we are based in Atlanta right now, and we do have a boutique in the Bahamas. So finally, yes, all of my American sisters and brothers, you are able to access our product finally by just hitting up our website. And if you need to reach me for any custom styling services, I am available. Hit us up in the DMs. We can make magic happen. We are servicing red carpets, film, TV, anything you need styling for kids for, we provide those services.
Mustafa.
Yeah, well, Danielle, congratulations. Your line is fire, and I mean that 100%. I have to ask the question. I've spent some time at Junkanoo, so I'm curious. The color palette that you're using reminds me so much of the time that I've spent there. So can you talk a little bit about how this came about?
Well, how Calico Bay came about, or
the colors that you use.
Well, definitely the colors are inspired from back home in the Bahamas. We are a colorful people. We are celebrating 50 years of independence this year, and so this is a massive year for our country. But we are a colorful people, and you can see that in our product offering. And I think that's a huge part of what draws people to our line. We're not scared to use color. We're bold. We're exciting. We combine prints and patterns that you've never seen before on kids. Gone are the days of the plain gray pinstripe suit. Gone are the days of just simple, pastel dresses in one color. We're mixing colors. We're mixing patterns. We're making it funky and fun. And so a huge inspiration, definitely home, the Bahamas, definitely.
Jason.
Hi, thank you for your wonderful presentation and the work that you're doing. My question is, are there plans for expansion, and would you ever launch an adult line?
Well, that's a great question. I consider this in itself being expansion, especially moving from the Bahamas and now offering into the U.S. But as of now, I am styling adults every single day. Moms, full-on families, men whoever. The styling, the styling itself is not just limited to kids here at Calico Bay, because as you know, we service kids, but our dads say, listen, where's my bow tie? Where's my pocket square? You can grab those online. We have our 4.5-inch bow tie that is perfect for adults, as well as lapel pins. So outside of that, clothing, we can absolutely do a custom styling session. All of that is available for you. Simply hit me up. My styling page on Instagram is stylist_Danielle Devine, and that's on Instagram. And of course, if you're not able to reach me there, you can absolutely just hit us up on our website and go into the comments page and get in touch with me. I'm very responsive. And I just want to mention, we have a special treat for all of our viewers just for tuning in this evening. We have a discount code for you. It's Roland, ROLAND, 20% off for 48 hours just because you tuned into Roland's show.
All right, then. We certainly appreciate it. Thank you so very much for joining us, Danielle, and good luck.
Thank you so much. It was a pleasure.
All right, thanks a bunch. Let me thank Atima, Jason, and Mustafa for being with me. I appreciate it. Thanks a lot. Folks, that is it for me. I was here in L.A. for the George Lopez Celebrity Golf Classic. In a moment, I'm about to tape the podcast with my man Bill Bellamy. I'll be back in studio tomorrow, and so look forward to seeing y'all there. Don't forget to support us in what we do. Join up. First of all, download our app, Apple phone, Android phone, Apple TV, Android TV, Roku, Amazon Fire TV, Xbox One, Samsung Smart TV. Join our Bring the Funk fan club. Your dollars make it possible for us to do what we do. Send check and money orders to P.O. Box 57196, Washington, D.C., 20037-0196. Cash App, $RM Unfiltered. PayPal or Martin Unfiltered. Venmo is RM Unfiltered. Zelle, Roland at RolandSMartin.com. Roland at RolandMartinUnfiltered.com. And be sure to get a copy of my book, White Fear, How the Browning of America is Making White Folks Lose Their Minds. Available at bookstores nationwide. Amazon, Barnes & Noble, Target. You can also download a copy on Audible. Folks, that's it. I'll see y'all tomorrow right here, Roland Martin Unfiltered on the Black Star Network. Holla! Folks, Black Star Network is here.
Hold no punches! I'm real revolutionary right now.
Support this man, Black Media. He makes sure that our stories are told.
Thank you for being the voice of Black America, Roland.
Stay black. I love y'all.
All momentum we have now, we have to keep this going.
The video looks phenomenal.
See, this difference between Black Star Network and black-owned media and something like CNN.
You can't be black-owned media and be scared.
It's time to be smart.
Bring your eyeballs home.
You dig?
Pull up a chair. Take your seat. The Black Tape with me, Dr. Greg Carr, here on the Black Star Network. Every week, we'll take a deeper dive into the world we're living in. Join the conversation only on the Black Star Network.
Hi, I'm Dr. Jackie Hood Martin, and I have a question for you. Ever feel as if your life is teetering and the weight and pressure of the world is consistently on your shoulders? Well, let me tell you, living a balanced life isn't easy. Join me each Tuesday on Black Star Network for A Balanced Life with Dr. Jackie.
We're all impacted by the culture, whether we know it or not. From politics to music and entertainment, it's a huge part of our lives, and we're going to talk about it every day right here on The Culture with me, Faraji Muhammad, only on the Black Star Network.
I'm Deborah Owens, America's Wealth Coach, and my new show, Get Wealthy, focuses on the things that your financial advisor and bank isn't telling you, but you absolutely need to know. So watch Get Wealthy on the Black Star Network.